Hello and welcome to the Quantum Bridge with myself, Casper, my co-host Gary, and very pleased to be able to say that we have not only a guest today, but a brand new guest to us. So rather than me stealing the thunder, although I will do a little wave, I'll pass over to you, Gary, to make the introductions.
Thank you, Casper. Yeah. We are familiar with our guest today. We've been watching her for a while, which is probably quite odd for her because she doesn't know anything about us at all. But on that note, I will welcome Gila to the show. Welcome to the Quantum Bridge, Gila.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
You're welcome. How are you doing today? Keeping well?
Excellent. It's Friday.
Well, that is true, yes. It is a Friday. I guess we was going to see where, like we spoke off camera, that Catherine and myself have been doing this actual sort of format for about a year or so now. When did all this start for you, when you decided to sort of go public in that sense, that you felt you had to join in that, getting the voice out there, isn't it? Because it's not always easy. Certainly wasn't for us. Yeah.
No, I'm naturally shy, reticent. I do not like being in the spotlight at all. But something inside me got activated with the lockdowns. I remember the moment it hit me. I was in the kitchen and, they were telling us there's the P word happening, P-A-N-D. I don't know if this is YouTube or not. So
you say what you like. We'll be the ones to have to deal with that.
Okay, fine. And I felt it inside, something, it felt like anger. Something clicked on and I was like, no. And I was like, it's funny because the word that came to mind was bullshit. I'm like, bullshit. And then it's like, that word hasn't left me for 4 years. And that there hasn't been a better word to describe what all of this is. Have you guys found a better word?
Well, madness comes close as well, but yeah. I'm happy to use your word.
Yeah,
I think that defines it the best.
It's honestly, it's the best word. And then I was pushed out of my comfort zone by whatever powers that be in the spiritual astral plane, and they're like, go. And I remember like a friend of mine wanted to an anti-thisser. She's like, let's do a live together on Instagram. I'm like, no, like I just, it's an awkward space for me to be in, but my soul gives me no choice. Like, this is the mission, and I have, life happens outside your comfort zone, and I really came to life. Like, now I love the 1 hour a week that I do on Thursday morning, that it has evolved into, it started out with me talking about all the things, the truth things that came up in our society, that became revealed to all of us in the past 4 years. So as each topic became revealed to me, I would discuss that and make short videos and put them out there. And then my channel got taken down so many times, and I like pared down to this small group of people, and we get together 1 hour a week and discuss the esoteric secrets of the Zohar, which is Kabbalah. And that to me is the pinnacle of my awakening. Like, everything has led me, all the rabbit holes and everything, every avenue that I've explored, that finding out the horrific truth of the reality, you guys know, the realities of this world and this planet, led me to what I feel like God was like, here's the prize, take this book. And I read the Zohar and I was like, this is what is going to save the planet. So me and there's like a tight-knit group of people study this book together. I plan for it all week. I read different sources all week, and I put together some sort of class, and I'm fumbling my way through it, as all of us are right now. I feel so fumbling still, but I feel like right now my main mission is to bring more light. And I feel that this book, that is the mystical Torah, really is like the secrets of the Torah, is like my sweet spot. I found my sweet spot.
Gila, a couple of quick things. Firstly, just to say that although off camera we touched on the time difference, we're so used to doing these formats now, despite it not necessarily being our, what we expected we'd end up doing with an aspect or part of our lives. But we haven't even mentioned that, of course, you're over in, I believe it's New York.
Right.
Yeah, so you're
Okay.
in New York and we're in the UK, not actually in London, but not far from London, out in the countryside just outside. And I think it's amazing just to reflect on that for a moment, that despite this not being a natural path for any of us, maybe, and we feel like we've been pushed or jettisoned into this by higher selves, whatever other forces which we can come on to look at. I think that's quite incredible and sort of quite lovely. So I'll just give a little bit of reverence to that and to our audience, and your audience as well, of course, and anybody who finds you out of this, for finding us and being willing to sort of put up, certainly with Gary and me at the beginning of our journey. It wasn't necessarily easy or natural. And the other thing I was going to say, which is sort of jumping back to what you're talking about, is as you're talking about, and I really know nothing about the Zohar, or really about Kabbalah and so on to any real degree, but I immediately have this sense of a sort of schematic of the soul. So almost like a diagrammatic representation of a type of orientation of what makes us what we are, this much more expanded being or part of the greater thing than we normally take ourselves to be. And I just want to see, because I don't know much about it, whether that has any resonance with the truth or reality of it for you, or if I'm completely on a different trajectory about that.
No, you're exactly right. It's a schematic, a diagram of who we are, what we are in the body, and in relation to higher worlds. It's exactly
Good.
right. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Because it's good to be in tune with that from the outset, because that's sort of where I'll be coming from. I'll sort of shut up now, really, and probably come back and join the conversation once you've had a lot more to say, which I'm keen to hear. But just maybe to take this on before Gary gets involved with questions, can you just touch on when, I appreciate that you've been kind enough to give an indication of when you got sort of prompted into action and maybe when the downloads started to happen and so on, but had you always been sort of a spiritual being, but just a quieter spiritual being? Had you always had certain information and knowledge that just came to you and through you, or was this a complete paradigm shift for you when this all happened a few years back?
So I made more sense to myself, you know what I mean? Because I had been that my whole life. I've been drawn to spirituality, and I got a lot of my spirituality surprisingly from Oprah. I watched Oprah when she had Eckhart Tolle. Like, they really opened up my soul, because I grew up in a very strict Orthodox Jewish community, and it was, do the rules or you'll be punished. It's a lot like a Catholic upbringing, and I knew there was more. I knew that wasn't my God, and I wanted a God that could be my friend. So, and not the scary man in the sky. So I was always seeking and searching in the secular world it was like a refreshing, different perspective on spirituality without all the dogma. And then I was able to take what I learned in the secular spiritual world and find it again in Judaism, which is what the Zohar is also. So it's really full circle for me. I attribute my sudden awakening to a slow build. It was like drip, 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 flood, because my whole life I always had an open heart to God. I was always just looking for him everywhere. Actually wrote a book, and this book, I'll show you the book. This book is my love note, is my one long love note to God, the center of all things. And it predates 2020. And it's just the stories of my personal awakening, character development, everything, all the work we do to improve ourselves in relationship to family, to connect inside. I have different chapters in there on all different topics of my journey, that my intention was to help inspire other people to develop their own intimacy with God, because this is why we're here. We're here. This is the message of my soul, the singular message of my soul, why I came. And we each have one. There's a theme to your soul and your soul. And I finally figured out, after writing this book and after all this awakening, I came to remind people to reach for your intimacy, your pocket of intimacy, your outlet in the sky that is shaped, you know, you have a plug that fits your soul exactly and no one else. It's this big cloud in the sky of all different shapes and sizes of plugs, and each one of us plugs in our own unique way, and God is just waiting there to connect with us. And that's the Zohar. Why I love the Zohar is because there's no greater intimacy than when someone tells you their secrets. You know what I mean? Like when someone whispers secrets in your ear of their whatever it is, of the most intimate things they want to tell you, it forges such a closeness. And that's what the Zohar is, the intimate secrets of the Bible. And they have to be decoded. But when you like really apply yourself and work hard at it and really like break your brain, like all of a sudden it cracks open and there's light that comes out and you're like, oh, and it's like a secret that it could be God only told you and no one else knows about it. It's not something tangible.
Yeah, just on that note, but by the way, that's incredible, and obviously this shows all about people sort of bearing their soul, and obviously again in terms of reverence, we give deep thanks for you know, I can feel where this is coming from, and that this is authentic, and
Thank
you know,
you.
that means a lot. So just firstly, thank you for being so deeply authentic with us. The other thing is about this thing of, you just mentioned sort of, you know, you're working this out and it feels somewhat cerebral, somewhat mind, but I'm getting the sense that that's an aspect of it, but actually part of this is the opening to this intuitive sort of gnosis, or, you know, you may have far better words for this than I can come up with, but would you say that a lot of this is also about an attunement to that thing that we can each individually sort of plug into, or has this been a lot of hard graft? I'm sure it's that as well, around very specific ways of looking at things and decoding them. How do those two things either sit together or not?
I think it's doorways. That's the word that, as you were speaking, it's like the intellectual aspect is a doorway to the emotional aspect, is a doorway to the spiritual aspect. These are the realms in the tree of life. And for me, I find when I read it didactically with an open heart, you know, I don't just use the brain, but I'm reading with heart and brain connection. What's that? Who's that guy? Joe Dispenza. When you have the heart brain coherence, and then you're putting information in your head, and all of a sudden, like the sparks are flying, and you're like, whoa! And those are holy moments.
Yeah, because I was just thinking that as you were saying and explaining how that was working, I was thinking so much more is going on, but Gila's not necessarily sharing that, not because you don't want to, but because so much becomes taken as read. You know, so much of our quote unquote spiritual journey just becomes that, yeah, of course it's heart, of course it's mind, of course it's soul, it's everything. And coming back to the schematic, all of those different aspects of all of those things and how they tie into that creation force as well, all going on. And yet, you know, we're somewhat limited, certainly in English at least, to how we even describe these hugely sort of or just incredibly difficult notions to put across in words. But with your body and with all of our bodies, we are much more able to actually give that sense that there's a lot more going on.
Absolutely. Even the energy that you guys create, it's beyond the word. Like I feel just so comfortable in your presence. It's amazing how it transmits over the computer even.
Well, it's coming back to this thing that you touched on before we started recording about sort of timelines, and obviously we're in two different time zones. There's also this thing about space. So one, that there's not really any time. I mean, we sort of make it all up almost for convenience, or maybe it's been given to us with more nefarious backgrounds to it. But also the thing about space is that while we are sharing this energetic space, albeit apparently through technology, of course it's not. You know, we're as close
Right.
as we could ever.
That's quantum. That's quantum, baby.
Yeah, yes, it's a quantum bridge occurring.
All
On that
right.
note, as I said, I said I'd be quiet. So Gary, please, I'm sure you've got some things to ask of Gila.
Yeah, just for some observations which I've found over the last year doing this sort of work, if we want to call it that, of how, like Gila said, everyone seems to resonate with different things and pulled towards different sources of information, or maybe they do end up in like healing modalities or Reiki or crystals. We've had a lady on that speaks to plants, and I thought, well, this is very specific. You know, she was drawn to that, you know, and I'm drawn to different things. And Casper, and obviously for yourself, Gila, it's been with that stuff that he was telling us about. It's I find that very interesting that we, like you're saying, each of us holds a little part in
Right.
of information or something that we're supposed to do. But I was wondering about that journey of getting there. I've looked at like tables of levels of consciousness and things, and I think of some of the layers I went through. Even, I mean, my entire life, as we've said, it's a long journey, but certainly around that 2020 period of working through fear, maybe, you know, for some people it was fear of a scary bug. For others, it was fear of oppression or tyranny. So there was a lot of, everyone was working through a lot of fear, if you like. And then you hit that sort of angry point. And now I see a lot of people, even in the sort of awakened thing, get stuck in this angry thing. They want justice. They want this. And I feel I've managed to move through that. I just wonder how you feel with that sort of journey and moving through those things. Have you got to a more peaceful place now, or do you still want the old EBS and the bish bash bosh?
I still want the EBS. I still want the EBS just because I feel like it'll bring a quantum leap, an acceleration of the change we're all hoping for. But I do have that piece you're talking about. I'm not as angry as I used to be, and it is a relief. I look at people, truthers, who are still in the anger phase, and maybe that's their assignment, as you say. I don't know. Like, some people are still on the thing in the arm. They're still. I'm like, still 4 years, really? How do you have the stamina for that?
Yeah.
But they do, and maybe they're tasked with that specific nuance, that niche. I don't know. No, none of us knows. But what I'm observing now, I have a Telegram chat, and people are going back and forth at the highest level of like understanding Bibi Netanyahu, who is he? And I'm like, I'm even checked out of that. I don't even need to know who's in a mask, who's not. I'm like, just give me the Garden of Eden. I'm just ready to like walk in peace and abundance and friendship, and I can't wait for collaboration with like-minded people. Like, I can't believe I manifested this beautiful conversation with you guys. This is really, a testament to what I've been putting out. I just wanted to, sit and sip tea with lovely people and talk about God. Is that so wrong?
Yeah. Green tea with jasmine today.
L'chaim.
It is interesting because we've managed to meet people from all around the world, and at an interesting time when they try to separate us, it's actually bringing people together. For someone like me who's lived a life as a recluse, let's put it that way, of avoiding everybody, I suddenly know all these people around the world, and it actually feels quite normal, which is an odd sensation for me. So,
I know it's finding people who it's easy to be with because we think the same.
Yeah, it's a testament to this whole concept of frequency, isn't it? That the people that we are now more comfortable with aren't necessarily even those close friends or family that we had prior to that certain event. And yet, I think for many of us, we would, maybe start to call those new people in our lives you know, maybe the real family, another family, the new family, whatever. But it does feel very much like we were always on that trajectory. And I didn't really have an inkling that anything like this would ever happen. And obviously, there's massive aspects of this that I wish didn't need to happen, but it seems quite clear that they did. And that out of that has blossomed something, not just in ourselves, but cumulatively, very interesting. I find the most difficult thing personally about this is, and it's hard not to talk about this and not to sound full of ego, but to be sort of at the vanguard and the front of this movement and this push towards that sort of world and space and realm that you're touching on, Gila, is not the easiest position to be in. But then I doubt it's meant to be easy.
Well, as you're speaking, I'm hearing King David, because he says, "V'anavim yirshu aretz," and the humble will inherit the earth, the meek.
Yeah,
and
the meek.
Who's more meek than us?
Yeah.
We're just quiet, you know, living our life people, forced into the spotlight. I mean, I'm on the spectrum of being an introvert. I'm all the way there. So, but I have so much to say. I have so much my heart wants to say, right? Don't you guys also? There's so much we want to say.
Well, Gary and you are very, very comparable on this thing of rather be off drinking tea with like-minded people, probably not putting yourself out there. I can't say it was natural for me, but it didn't feel as unnatural. But for guys like you, I mean, the bravery, I mean, that's another beautiful thing that this has shown, is that there's very different types of bravery at work in the world. And the bravery that both of you have shown just by being willing to show your own voices and then bringing other voices to the fore. And of course, the great thing about that is people look at you guys and go, well, they are not natural at this. They don't naturally enjoy it. And yet they've done it anyway. And that feel the fear and do it anyway is I think that's a very positive thing that's come out of this.
100%. There's exhilaration on the other side of that. Yeah.
Yeah. When we did I mean, there was many reasons we started this, you know, on a personal level. It's all those nudges you get to speak out and break through comfort zones. And it did take me about 6 months of, you know, sitting there thinking, am I going to, you know, I enjoyed my nobody seeing me, you know, so it was tricky. But I did feel, well, it's now or never to make that shift. And I had a willingness to create a platform that was open to other people. So many of our guests, a lot of them, it's their first times. They're also nervous, but they also get in that little thing of, you know, sometimes when we ask, they say, well, you know what, I've been getting that nudge, I should speak out, you know. And I'm like, well, you can feel comfortable here. I mean, especially with people who aren't used to it, we say, look, if you don't like it, we just bin it, you know. We haven't had to, thankfully, but we just like it's a comfortable, if we use that term, safe space.
Yeah.
Where sometimes, actually, we have had some guests where they sort of faltered and got a bit nervous, and we're like, okay, we'll just come back and do it another time. It's
beautiful.
It helps, I feel. Yeah.
Didn't you feel so good though? It's like jumping out of a plane, you know, and then you're like, oh, I did it, and it wasn't so bad. It was actually fun.
Gary still finds it painful.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. But for me, the feedback afterwards, when people tell you how you lifted them up or inspired them, or just the connection on the other side, that's my paycheck. Like that's what feels biggest paycheck I ever got. I love reading comments, and I love, you know, anything that people share in response to what I've shared is like $1 million.
Yeah,
Gila, the other aspect we found, and maybe this gels with you, and hopefully it does for Gary, well, I know it does with Gary, is that we were always looking at this aspect of sort of humanitarian projects and what they might be and what we could do or what we could facilitate for the world. And little did we know, as we were talking about them on the channel, that in many ways, you know, with hindsight, it's been that the channel itself and not just for those watching. You know, it's great that any engagement we get, we're very, very thankful for, and we really hope that this is helpful in some way. But the network that's been created out of doing these shows, you know, as Gary touched on, one around the world, but also with really diverse groups of people, because we don't, you know, we're not discriminatory in any way. I mean, it's just a wonderful group of people with, you know, slightly different, you know, all maybe sharing something underlying on frequency, but with all different viewpoints and probably politically quite different and in all sorts of ways different. And yet, you know, coming together, that bridging and that bringing together aspect. And I'm guessing that you've seen in the work that you've been doing, both on and off camera, that building and forging of these new relationships that are in a way a humanitarian project.
It's everything. I just took a course. I have to tell, I'm interviewing this guy who I took the course from. His name is Billy Phillips, on Sunday. And his course is called Unredacting Jesus, the truth about the life of Jesus. And this is a very touchy subject for Jews and most people. And he says there is no unity without diversity. I love that. And I learned from him, one of the gifts he gave me, the gifts of clarity he gave me in his course, is that seated in all the religions is Zohar. Zohar was, I think, intentionally planted in the New Testament. It's definitely the Old Testament, and I think it's part of many religions. And when the lies come off the religions, you know, the superimposed control structures fall away, what's going to really unite us through diversity is these common divine truths that we all have integrated. And it's going to be so beautiful. We're going to be like, oh, we all believe the same thing. Once the curtains come down and we see what's behind everything, the truth of it all, it's going to be so beautiful.
You used the term, or you touched on the term of sort of light and bringing light to things and so on. And there is this whole thing of the Schumann resonance now. And I know that Dennis Bullock, one of our guests, was touching on this area of sort of the light being brought to bear, and that from that light on not just the visible light side of it, but energetically, this sort of energetic cleansing that we're seeing will lead to that. One, it will lead to that transition to a fifth dimension or density and beyond, but also it will lead to that revealing of basically nothing can hide. And because nothing can hide and it's all being exposed, at the same time as those terrible things are exposed, of course, those beautiful truths are also exposed. And of course, it has to be that way, maybe in some respects, because of the duality of the 3D experience, at least. So I think it's lovely, you know, the openness that you have to, you know, things that might play back into your own belief system, fine. But I think we all need to find that space for openness if we're going to move on together.
100%, 100%. It's if you're being offended, it's your ego. You know, it's just those moments of triggers really help you resolve and dissolve the ego. I've always felt that there's a certain tunnel of truth that you cannot bypass. You can't, if spirituality is on the other side of it, if God is on the other side, there's this tunnel of truth you must go through to strip away the lies, to get to the pride. That's the same journey I've been on the past 4 years, is I had to go through down in the rabbit holes so I could find God on the other side. It's just a process. You can't just jump it.
It does feel very much like there are these layers to that truth and to that journey. Now, we can think of them obviously as rabbit holes, and we do, and we can think of them in terms of ascension as well, going through these layers of awareness and, you know, alchemy and the transcendental side of things and so on. But I think for all of us, the other amazing thing that we're waking up to is the prevalence of that creative force, God, whatever name people ascribe to that, everywhere, even in the darkness and the terrible stuff, and also the need for this horrific often, but this friction to have pushed us to this much more ascension-like timeline. And I wonder how you've and those around you and those you speak with are coming to terms with the fact that in a dualistic experience, it's inevitable that we were going to need the horror of this friction, but actually there's a great blessing in that friction too.
100%. And I think that's one of the highest levels we can get to, is to say, oh, thank you, dark forces. Thank you. You pushed me to God. And then they can go, thank them. That's the best way to get them to leave you. Thank you for your service. You're dismissed.
Yeah. Well, it's the ultimate in disempowerment for them, isn't it? So.
Right. We see you. We see you. We see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much. Off you go. Yeah. Agree. Okay, I'm just conscious that we don't have a huge amount of time. Obviously, you're very, very welcome to come back and to speak with us again, Gila. But I just wondered whether or not there's anything you're doing currently or in the immediate near future that you just wanted to shed any light on or to mention to our audience too.
Just what we spoke about, the class that I give, my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
On YouTube. I have a Telegram channel, and I would love anybody who's interested in learning the secrets of Torah to join me.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously anything like that we will also, of course, include in our description section, any information you'd like to provide and funnel people into that. And I'd urge people to do that because, I think we all need an openness to explore each other's truths at the moment. We're going to come out of that it will be a much richer experience if we can all do it.
100%.
Gary, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think we need to wrap it up so that we don't get cut off abruptly. As sometimes happens for us, unfortunately.
Oh.
We just like to say thank you for joining us, Gila. It's been
thank you so much. This was lovely. This was so wonderful. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
You're welcome back anytime, Gila. We hope you take us up on that.
I definitely will.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining.
Mwah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.